Alright, we are talking about Encanto. I liked this movie a lot. I would say I loved this movie. I would say this movie was very, very nearly perfect for me. And I will talk about the one little thing that kept it from being that in a bit. But just so you know, kind of my mindset, I think Moana is probably the best Disney classic that's come out in a long time. That might, recency bias is keeping me from saying that it's the best one ever, because it is still pretty new. But I think Moana is very, very good. I think it's better than most of the other modern stuff from Disney. And I think it's very easy, especially for boring white people like me, to compare Encanto to things like Moana and Coco, because to me, they seem similar in that they're different, meaning they're not based on white European stories from hundreds of years ago. But musically, it's very similar to Moana. I know Lin-Manuel Miranda was involved with both. I don't know if he had the same level of involvement with both. But that music is very lively and energetic, which is not typical across the whole history of Disney. So musically, I would say it's similar to Moana. And culturally, while they don't say that these characters are Spanish or Mexican or Latino, that's clearly an inspiration, even if they're not supposed to be exactly that. So culturally, there are some connections that my brain makes with something like Coco. So I'm not saying that it's the same as either of those. I'm saying when I'm watching Encanto, it's kind of like take pieces of Moana, take pieces of Coco, and I'm not saying you smash them together, but it's similar to those things from my perspective, which is not going to be everybody's perspective. But I loved Encanto. Couple big reasons why. And the first one was that it's addressing an issue that I have been feeling very strongly lately, which is this push and pull of when you feel upset or troubled or bad in any way because of any number of factors, but you know that you've got it pretty good, and a lot of other people have it a lot worse off than you, and so you feel like you shouldn't complain. Even though you're feeling bad, your brain tells you that you shouldn't complain, and that back and forth has been a big issue for me. And there are songs that I've really responded to that have been coming out that I've been noticing lately. And so that idea, that theme has been very big in my mind over the last 2 years or so. And that's a big part of this movie. And I think it addresses it pretty well. It doesn't try to give an easy answer to it. But I think it's just validating that. And it's like you can acknowledge that you have, what's the word I'm looking for? Privileges and benefits, and you have it pretty good compared to others, but that doesn't mean that you're not allowed to be sad about things. And I think that's really important. And I really loved how they showed that in this movie. So right away, as soon as I started picking up on that, which is pretty early, like end of the first song, pretty early on in the movie, that kind of had me pulled in. And then the music, I don't think there were any songs that I disliked. A lot of the songs I'm going to have to listen to a lot because they're fast and they're very rhythmic and they've got a lot of information and they go back and forth between English and Spanish. So musically, there wasn't anything that I was like, wow, that just doesn't sound very good. But I didn't take the same amount away from each song just because of all those different factors that I mentioned. But I think it's the second song, which is sung by Luisa, the strong member of the family. And the whole song is about how she's the strong one, and everyone always expects her to be able to take everything. And she's like, some days I don't feel strong. Sometimes I need help. Sometimes I feel weak. But I can't let that show because everyone's depending on me to be the strong one. And that, again, is a huge thing that I've been feeling over the last couple of years. So we got these two huge ideas that have been a big part of my life, my mental state for 2 years, right at the beginning of the movie. And it doesn't really, like, gloss over that stuff. Louisa gets a little bit of a neat little bow tied on hers at the end, but, you know, it's a kid's movie, so what are you going to do? But it talks about it. It addresses it and it talks about it, and I think that's really important for the kids that are growing up with these feelings, and I think these feelings are becoming more and more common. So, like, I was hooked in right away. I was brought in even more with the very next song. And then from there, it's a pretty good kids movie. I'm not going to say it's absolutely amazing or groundbreaking. I think it's again, very similar to Moana. A lot of things happen. I would say it's not quite as disconnected as Moana, because Moana has a lot of, like, then you go to the crab, and then you have the Kakamura, and then you have this thing, and then you go to Te Fiti, and they're not really connected. It's just a series of events. These things feel more connected. It also deals with a black sheep of the family, and we don't talk about Bruno, and there's a whole song about we don't talk about Bruno, and it's like this member of the family that it's like people, I don't want to say that they hide it, but they avoid it, and I've got experience with that too. Not for myself, but I've got people in my family that we kind of just don't talk about very often, and so, like, again, that drew me in even more. There was, I just had another thought of another thing that I connected to on a personal level. They don't say this term, but the idea of toxic positivity is a huge driving factor in this movie, where the grandmother will not accept any bad news, will not admit that anything is going wrong, and just, no, we need to be good, and we need to smiles on everybody. And, like, that's been a big problem in my life over the past 2 years, of people not addressing the issues and just saying, oh, you know, just keep a smile on your face and keep pushing, and oh, you're doing so good for you. And that doesn't help. That doesn't help. And so the fact that that was, like, that concept was the villain of this movie, pretty much. I like this movie a lot. And maybe it's just me, and that it ticked all exactly the right boxes. And if that's the case, then fine, right? Maybe not everybody will love this as much as I did. But I really, really, really liked this movie. Spoilers. Moving on as I talk about the one little thing. So at a point in the movie, the family loses their magic. The house crumbles and falls apart. And it's like, it's gone. The miracle is gone. And I'm sitting there in the audience, hoping and begging to the Disney lords to not give them the magic back. Right? Because they go through some stuff, and it's like they're learning a lesson. I was like, okay, let them learn the lesson, and then don't give them the magic back. Right? Because I feel like a lot of times they'll learn the lesson, and then they get the magic back. And then it's like, well, then you're really just back where you started. Like, yes, you learned a lesson, but this same cycle is going to happen again, probably. And so they go and they learn the lesson, and then they're coming back to the town, and I was like, don't do it. Don't give him the magic back. Don't give him the magic back. And all the townspeople come up, and it's been shown that, like, this family uses their gifts to help the town. And so it's this very wholesome moment where the town comes in, and they're like, you need our help now, and you've been there for us, and we're going to be here for you. And they rebuild the whole house, and it's this great song, and I loved it. I was absolutely, that's how I wanted it. And then at the very end, like, probably the last 2 minutes of the movie, they get the magic back, and I'm like, why? They don't need the magic. That should be the point. They had the magic, they used it for good, they lost sight of it. I wouldn't say that they misused it, but they lost sight of what was really important, because the magic wasn't what was important, right? They lost sight of what was important. The magic was gone. They learned their lesson, and then they all proved to each other that they didn't need the magic. stop it there. Stop it there. But then no, in the last couple minutes, they get the magic back, and then it's... I was very disappointed by that. But I'm telling myself that that wasn't a narrative decision. That was a merchandise decision. And they want to be able to sell Magic House playsets and blah, 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 blah. And if your movie ends with no magic, maybe that's a harder sell. So, I don't like it. I actively dislike it. But I don't think it takes away from the rest of what the movie did. And when I rewatch this movie in the future, I will just stop before she puts the doorknob on the door. And it will be a much better movie. So, other than that, I really like this movie a lot. I'm probably going to look up some songs and try to get them going. That Pressure song, Luisa's song about pressure, that's gonna be my jam for the next couple weeks. I love it. I love it a lot. So those are my thoughts on Encanto. Huge recommendation. I liked it a lot. Let me know your thoughts. If I'm too easy on this movie, if I have a weird reaction that I'm giving this movie too much credit for stuff that it didn't really deserve credit for, tell me your thoughts, right? These are just my thoughts, these are just my opinions, but from my perspective, this movie was fantastic. So, those are my thoughts. Let me know your thoughts. Thank you very much for watching, and have a good day.